Welcome to the AccuShield podcast. I'm Deontay Davis, VP of Sales here, and I'm joined by Mike Lavallee.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, Mike. I'm glad that you're here at the workshop, and you actually just got done speaking.
Just.
Right? So, we'd love to, first off, give a little introduction of yourself, who you are, and what you're doing here.
Yeah. So I have the pleasure of being CEO at Seasons Retirement Communities. Although I am not the owner of the organization, I am employee number one.
Wow.
And so I do have the pride of being able to say that every hire that is at the organization is a result of the crazy journey that I've asked them to come along on with me and with the rest of our team.
So, Mike, obviously we have you here at the AccuShield Healthcare Staffing Innovation Workshop, and we're going to be talking about staffing, recruiting, retention, all the nitty-gritty of what it means to build a great culture and make sure that your people are doing well and you're recruiting new people. Mm-hmm. So we'd love to hear a little bit about why you decided to attend the workshop, not just as an attendee, but also as a speaker.
Right. Well, first of all, I was asked. So that's always that's always a good place to start, right? What I like about this, rather than Mike talking head coming out and doing a presentation, was we're going to talk about what we're doing at Seasons. So I'll give you kind of like my favorite topic to talk about, my organization, and then be able to break that off into groups that are going to do something about what we talked about. Maybe make it more relevant to their organization, maybe something that's shared as a group. Everyone's pain points are the same. And then that comes back to the group as a shared collective solution or a bunch of solutions that any one of us can walk away and say, you know what, there's the value of something that I got that I wouldn't have gotten anyway.
Yeah.
You hear a speaker, you're looking for that one thing, that one theme, that context that you can take back, and then you have to do a lot of work to give it some life. Mm-hmm. Here, I think it's an incubator for bringing all of that kind of to the implementation stage or closer to it than you would if it was just me as a consultant or subject matter expert coming out and talking about something.
Yeah. And that was really the goal with putting on the workshop. There's so many conferences in senior living where, everyone goes. Obviously, you have a lot of fun. You learn some things, but it's not very interactive. Mm-hmm. So we want to do that completely different, have something where we have pretty, intimate setting. We have about 120 people here. We want to get people at tables, roll up your sleeves, learn some new things, and talk about what's working and what's not working. Yeah. Right. So we'd love to actually hear, for you guys at Seasons in particular, up in Canada, what's working for y'all when it comes to staffing. And you just heard my Texas come out, all the y'all.
Yeah. I might toss one in later as well. Yeah. But, I think the pandemic, and so let me kind of back up. I'm going to go back to what we were just talking about before, which is what was the inception of Seasons. So we always have firmly believed that culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And if you don't define what your culture is, you're going to get culture. Mm-hmm. You may not like what you get. So you got to be really, really specific about what those rewardable, recognizable behaviors are, and then clone the crap out of it so that you get more of the same instead of hiring because you have a vacancy and the house is on fire. And so, that chaotic kind of approach, we all do it. We have to. When things aren't going well, you get there. But then after that is building the foundation so that you can really kind of cement what good culture looks like. So when we started at Seasons, employee number 1 and 2, we looked around and said, okay, so we've got a good idea. Culture is going to be what we do. All right, so who does really good culture? Looked around. We didn't want to be one and the same as everyone else. Everyone's got mission, vision, values in organizations. But we said, who does it really well? Disney was our breakout moment in the beginning. Okay, well, how are we going to learn? Well, Disney has an institute. So literally the first 3 years of our 13, 14-year existence was going to Disney once a year, studying them, and bringing back contextualized stuff that we would inspire our leaders to say, okay, well, that's how Disney does it. It's the most recognized, valuable brand at the time. Mm-hmm. But they do what we do. They clean rooms, they serve meals, they even have a hospital they have roads, they manage parking lots. They do what we do. They just do it in the most magical way. So let's find a way to make that a Seasons reality. And we did that so well that at one point, we were allowed to use on our collateral, inspired by Disney. We outgrew Disney. We started to think, okay, well, where are we going to be beyond Disney? Because that was a really great way to start. And so the iterative culmination of that is Connect, Care, Change. And that's where we are today, where we inspire all of our leaders, not just from their connection to our customers, but their connection to the individuals that they are responsible for, is to connect, care enough about that individual, to know what makes them tick, to understand what their priorities, goals, problems are, and then affect change so that those individuals can unleash their enthusiasm and make our business move forward. And whatever that is. I mean, payroll has got a customer. We got to make sure that everyone's getting paid on time, paid accurately. They have a job, and their relationship with every individual and team member, that's for them to be able to execute on that shared mission. We treat our vendors the same way. We like partnership. We embed that in what we do.
Yeah, and I think a really great thing that I heard there from you is that, not only is Seasons innovative, but you're constantly evolving. How you outgrew Disney, had to move to some other things. So that's really, really great to hear.
If you're standing still, you're going backwards.
Yeah.
And I have always said this to everyone in my team. I might have mentioned something in the room that someone in the room, my COO, probably said, don't talk about that. That's our secret.
Yeah.
But we're there first. So we innovate. And so, it's great that we're looking over our shoulder at people copying us as we've done it, but we're moving on to the next. Yeah. So that is our growth strategy, is constantly innovating and moving forward and iteratively improving. The main theme in our organization when we talk about that is to start, stop, and continue. Stop doing things that have no value, that we did for a reason, but we shouldn't be doing anymore. Yeah. Start doing things that move the business forward to the reality of the problems you're solving today, and continue doing the things that are really driving the business, and they're stable, and they are meaningful things for our constituents, whether they're employees or customers.
That's good stuff. So speaking of the future and the next generation, so where do you see senior living heading over the next 5 to 10 years?
So here are the economic drivers. There is not enough congregate living capacity to take care of this growing demographic that's coming. And if you are trying to build space, it's very expensive to build space today. So the inflationary pressures on the construction market are just the same as what they are in the grocery store. You can't build them for a price right now that economically pencils from a development perspective. So capacity is basically stale or stalemating or slowing. The economic bubble is coming our way. And so where are they going to go? So all of us probably have some vacancies. Those vacancies will probably disappear over time. But if you don't have anyone to take care of those people, we will have trouble and problems, right? So you have to think in terms of the millennial mindset and that cohort that's coming to us that is highly educated, probably the most educated cohort ever, overly educated for most of the jobs that they get, probably most likely to be underemployed, and probably most likely to be at or slightly above the poverty line. Yeah. These are real problems for that cohort that employers have to understand how to meet that challenge and take care of them.
Yeah. And as a millennial myself, I can say all of that does resonate. And I've been in senior living for the last 6 years, right after I got out of college, and kind of been in that technology space of senior living. So, when it comes to millennials, Gen Z, all that, what are some strategies, and how do you all at Season approach getting these people in the door?
Sure. Some of the things that we've adopted and have experimented with, so obviously the flex scheduling is very important. One thing that we were first in Canada to implement in our sector was work for pay. So we will pay our employees, casual workers especially, 50% of the pay that they earned the day they earned it. And so some people, they'll pick up an extra shift because, maybe they need to put gas in the car or whatever it is. I mean, let's face it, not everyone's got a career in mind. Sometimes there's a lot of flexibility that works for them. This week, my kids were going to summer camp and they needed a chaperone, so I went, so I couldn't take any shifts. But next week, I'm fully committed and totally available. So, the ability of rewarding our people through compensation measures, that's important. creating financial health for our leaders. One thing that I just talked about in the room is it's surprising to me that we have a defined contribution plan for our salaried managers, and it's not 100% utilized. That opportunity to educate our people to take care of their own financial health is I feel it's an obligation. It's something that we should be doing because they're taking care of our clients and we aren't taking care of their financial health. We also think about wellness in a more comprehensive way than just before, where you would say, well, you have a benefit plan. Just go get your pills, go to the doctor, go to the dentist, get vision. It's a lot more than that. It's it's the wellness at home. It's the wellness in the workplace. It's that ability to manage stress. It's the ability of understanding stress is not an evil. It's actually what everyone needs to get out of bed. Yeah. We need a little bit of stress, but it's building the resilience and the tools to be able to manage that stress, right? Yeah. Mental health is a label that everyone is suffering from, but it's because I think the ability, the resilience to managing stress somehow is failing.
Yeah. That's good. Just got to chew on that for a moment. That's important. So you mentioned flex scheduling.
Yeah.
And, now we're in this gig economy where you have, senior living is competing against the Ubers, DoorDash, all those companies of the world where they provide this more flexible work schedule to their employees and their workers, really, right? So, and that's something that AccuShield is putting a stake in the ground to. How do we provide our customers the ability to provide flexibility for their internal staff, right? Right. So talk a bit more about flex scheduling and what that looks like for you guys over at Seasons.
Some of it is still an experiment. Let's face it. Not everyone is great. We know that 85%. We know that our workforce connects to the internet 85% of the time using their mobile device. We know that they are hyper connected, but we also know that they're untethered. So they don't have a lot of things that are making them do the same thing all the time. Mortgage being one, car payment being the other, putting food on the table for the family being the third, right? So when we think in terms of creating that flexibility, putting a tool out, so we used to do, so collective agreements are pretty prescriptive on what you do. So in the collective agreement, there's language in there that says that every 4 weeks, you will know what the next 2 weeks are going to look like for everyone that's a full-time employee. That's great. What about the part-time and casual? Those people have to have way more flexibility on being able to shift exchange, on being able to put the shift up and not being necessarily required to pick it up because they just want to give up the shift. So all of those things and a tool to be able to do it so that our managers aren't bogged down specifically doing that scheduling work and the call-outs, it was gobbling up a ton of their time and not allowing them to do the things that are really important, which is connect with individuals, develop them, and lead them to moving the business forward. So that education, so here's the piece. We have tools. Corporately, we've done a lot of work creating a great foundation and toolkit for our leaders in the home to be able to make the work experience and the workflow better. They need to pick up the ball and get on with it. Yeah. And that's our job to help them do that. But at the end of the day, that's the frontline tier one leader's job. Is to use the tools that we give them.
Yeah, it ties so well into people development, giving them the tools that they need to succeed and ultimately take care of residents. That's why we're here, right?
That's right.
So you've been in senior living for quite some time. What's made you stay in this industry?
God, it wasn't COVID, I'll say that.
Yeah.
Although I will say, listen, COVID was at my board meetings, I would have one individual who would sit at the board and say, prior to COVID, who would sit at the board meetings and say, Mike, what about the Black Swan event? What are we prepared for the Black Swan? I'm like, dude, what are you thinking? Like the plague? Who knew that we would literally be ground zero, taking care of the most vulnerable population subject to this particular pathogen, and all of the things that we had to put in place to stabilize their occupancy with us, our staff engagement, talking about vaccinations, we're talking about PPE, we're talking about all of the infection control and everyone who felt like they had to help us with compliance, all the public health agencies. All of that makes us better today. Prepared for the next? I don't know. I don't know what the next one's going to be. What if it's not airborne? What if we have a water supply that's completely contaminated? I mean, obviously, we are better prepared to manage emergencies. As an example, Canada's on fire, as you know. Everyone talks about it. We have communities in rural Alberta that we had one community that we had to evacuate all of our staff and all of the residents for 1 week and house them in another community about 40 miles away. And we did that in 3 hours.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Preparedness.
Yeah.
Black swan thinking is kind of now embedded in what we do. Yeah. We are really good at saying, okay, that's really optimistic. What about base case? And what about worst case? And what about black swan? So now our emergency preparedness has addendums and appendices to the plans that we had in place before.
Yeah. And, COVID was a tragedy, especially for senior living. And I think if there was any one silver lining that came out of it, it showed that there was a need for more preparedness. There was a need for more innovation to be ahead of these things, as they come.
You're spot on. So you asked me why the original question I'm not sure I answered, which is why do I still do it? Because it's not stale yet. Yeah. And that's exactly it. It is a business with heart. In the very beginning, the very first few months where we were losing residents, I made every one of those phone calls to the family to say, I'm really sorry. Mom passed. Those were tough. Yeah. But it forced us to be way more aggressive on how we evaluate technology and innovation and rapidly implement. And so we learned a lot about how to implement technology because we had to. And now we can be more selective about what we want to do and less fearful about, oh man, it's too hard. Can't we just status quo that? Punt that. That's not where we need to be right now. We need to be over here. Well, wait a minute. If we never do this, we actually will never be able to, we'll just be here. Yeah. We need to go in this direction. Let's commit some resources. Let's be a little bit more forward thinking. And so I would say it has made us much more strategic about our business as well.
Yeah, I think senior living, skilled nursing, healthcare, when you think of it as a whole, is just ripe for disruption. Things have been done the same for a lot of years.
Yep.
And I think that's a golden nugget for any type of software company that's working with senior living, which is, have an easy implementation.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But it's the easy implementation from a corporate perspective. Okay, now I've got a ton of data. So now I'm going to be able to make really smart decisions. Not if the people who are using it find it clumsy and very difficult to get on. And, I've got 4 different things that you want me to do. Which is the most important? I need to prioritize and create that seamless kind of integration in the way that they manage our business through technology. So, one tool that does one thing and another tool that does another thing versus one tool that does 3 things, that's a powerful advantage.
Yeah. Another great tip there, have great end user adoption. You need that.
That's right.
Yep. So last question, actually 2 last questions I got for you, Mike. What is a must do for those who are visiting Canada? Because you're in Toronto, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Must do. Well, so as a foodie, Canada's a great food scene. It really is a great food scene. But most Americans would so we're talking about Americans coming to Canada?
Let's talk Americans going to Canada.
All right. Americans coming to Canada, you have to have poutine.
Okay.
You just do. You should. Now, times of year that you should come, however, Bob would tell you should come during maple syrup season.
Yeah.
Because the maple syrup, so Canada accounts for, 70% of the global maple syrup production.
That's insane. Yeah.
But during maple syrup harvest season, there are events around eating everything maple syrup, which includes pouring it on crystal clear snow and eating it like toffee. Really? That whole maple syrup experience, that's very Canadian, and that's something everyone should do. Yeah. And the last thing I would say is Canada is a great place to winter. And so there are some phenomenal places in Canada where winter is really well done. Yeah. Quebec being one, British Columbia being another. And so really would encourage people who like the snow to come during winter, not just the summer.
You get AccuShield to send me out to Canada.
All right.
Here shortly. So actually 2 last questions. So why would you tell someone to go to the next healthcare staffing innovation workshop?
Well, I'm hoping, and so you'll find out in my survey when I'm done, I'm sure, as an attendee myself. But I'm hoping that most of the people are going to walk away from this format and say, I was not just presented with information that I then had to take away and do a lot of work to do something with, or that I met a consultant that was going to provide services to my business. I'm hoping that what people are going to walk away with, and that I'm going to walk away with, are one or two implementable solutions that someone helped me put context around in a workshop that now I can go back and say, there's value here. Yeah. Team, let's talk about this and how we should be doing something like this here, and who's going to be the champion. Because any great idea needs one champion. Sure, you're going to use a committee, but you need a lead. And that lead now becomes the champion, passionate about seeing it go to the end, not just get it off the ground. Because it's great to just get it off the ground, but you got to get it to the point where it's actually delivering intended results and measurable ones. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's really the hope for all the attendees that are coming to the workshop, that they take away a couple things that can go home, use, implement, everything. So last question, which I got. What piece of advice would you give to your younger self as you're stepping into senior living?
So one of the things that I was really committed to when I stepped into senior living was that it was not just a clinical business. One of my first gigs, I was the executive director in a nursing home, and very difficult relationship with a few of our nurses, with a few challenging residents. And, they kept saying the same thing. It's, he's got behaviors, he's hard to manage, he's very disruptive. And so I said, all right, well, let me take him on. Let me see if I can understand or modify. And it came down to, there was so much loss in his life, loss of independence, his wife was failing, so much loss that his purpose was to advocate. Yeah. So that was his cause. That is the single most powerful driver in our business for people who want to work in it, is connect them with the purpose and then enable them to be able to make change. I would say that was a skill set that I developed early and brought it in. If I had more confidence as an emerging leader on how to really push that agenda forward, I think there would be more people who I've had the opportunity to lead that would have seen that as a powerful tool. But I can honestly say that fearlessly, I never said no. I took on every challenge. When asked, Mike, do you want to do this? The answer should be no. I don't want to do it, but I never said no. Yeah. Gave me a really broad understanding of every part of our business, from operations, marketing, and certainly from HR. So to answer your question, being courageous in building relationships is the single most important tool as a leader in any industry, but certainly in this one.
Yeah, definitely. I think that just makes for an awesome career. That makes for a lot of growth throughout the line, so that's good.
Everyone has heard me say this. When you make your business overly clinical, it becomes scary because not everyone's a nurse, not everyone's a doctor. So I'm continuously bringing it back to the theme, which is, it doesn't matter how good our clinical department is. If our rooms aren't clean and the meals aren't good, we suck together. Yeah. So let's not suck together. Let's be great together.
Yeah. And that is the last golden rule for senior living.
That's right.
Mike, it's been a pleasure having you here. Really enjoyed your topic and look forward to the rest of the workshop.
Great. Thanks.
Absolutely.